Hello, I'm Kristen Oaks-White.
And I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, where we take a look at some of the big stories, our favorite stories, and maybe some of the moments we just weren't on the mark.
Well, one of the top stories is a core mission of the Louisiana Farm Bureau is to protect and fight for Louisiana agriculture at the local, state, and national level.
The grassroots organization is still in the middle of its campaign to get a new farm bill passed and for supplemental assistance to farmers immediately so they can continue to put food on our tables. TWILA's Carl Wiggers has been telling these stories about the men and women impacted by this out-of-date farm policy and the dire need to get help now.
Cotton's the last hope that I've got for something to be profitable on paper, because grains have been ugly.
It's not looking that rosy, not for 25.
It makes it hard for us to keep doing what we're doing. We had good prices in the spring of last year, but if you didn't take advantage of that price, the market just fell out last year and hadn't recovered since.
You would not risk the amount of money that we put into these crops to get the return that we hope to make. And for the last 3 years, haven't.
It's a thing when you've got a good crop and can't make any money at it, it's just a tough thing to really swallow.
We know we can't control the volatility of the market, or we may not deal with rains at planting. Maybe you can switch to another crop. There's ways to navigate that risk other than just crop insurance.
The current Farm Bill is 6 years old now. It was passed in 2018, and farming's changed a lot, since that time, and those safety nets and those reference prices, have become stale.
One thing about it that does not change, if we don't get this ag policy set up with this Farm Bill and quit kicking this can down the road, it's going to be detrimental. There are a lot of people hanging on by a thread. And if we can't, get the reference prices up where they need to be to catch up with 2024, 2025 prices of inputs and whatnot, it's going to be bad.
This is just one of many examples of why punting on a farm bill, extending a farm bill, is not working. The casualties of that are our young farmers that are still trying to struggle to make it. And if they don't have risk protection tools, they can't stay on the farm, they can't provide food, and that food security is at risk.
The Farm Act is another tool, supplemental, that's being discussed. So I think there's some strength in those conversations. I think there's some bipartisan effort that'll be generated here in the lame duck session. So hopefully our producers can have those resources to take to their lenders and put crops in 2025.
You see all these trucks on the road hauling all this grain, and these elevators and infrastructure and mills that process all this stuff. The jobs that all these people have that have a finger or touch any of this, if you take this away, then all that's going to go. All that depends on what we do here.
Without the farmer, there is no small town economy.
If the farmers wasn't here, people wouldn't have money to go spend at the grocery stores and go eating out and go and keep people employed and keep money rolling in this community.
When you start telling your farmers they can't farm, you don't need vendors to sell to them anymore. You don't need people to work for them anymore.
When things are good, you can really tell it, because everything's bustling, everybody's doing good, got a smile on their face, and when things are bad, you can really just tell it's drawing on everybody. It's not just the farmer's concern, it's the whole community's concern that the farm makes it.
I knew I was going to farm. My daddy farmed. His daddy farmed. I loved it. I was out here every day. And it gets to a point where, yeah, I love it, but can I feed and provide for my family by doing it?
Now, the work is not over. Louisiana Farm Bureau is continuing its campaign for supplemental disaster assistance, and you have a role to play in that. This is not just for farmers. Everyone can join in our efforts by simply scanning this QR code and making your voice heard that Congress needs to step up and keep our farmers in business. And guys, we've been telling this story for a couple of years, but really these last few months has been real. And it's been really, I don't want to say fun, but it's been very it's purposeful, and it's been nice to have to see our members engage in this kind of a campaign, and and really step up to the plate and tell their stories.
Yeah, you see that message shift from just we need a farm bill to we need assistance, but it's been really impressive to see the response. I mean, this last push had what, 1,500 responses, Carl?
A lot of people are sending those emails, and it's very simple. You'll get an email, you click a button, and you can send a few letters, both senators and your representative at the U.S. Capitol, and it's really simple. But if you've seen a few emails, don't be alarmed. It's not spam. We're just constantly changing that message and reminding, beating that drum that Congress needs to step up and get this done before Christmas.
These are such impactful and important stories that you did this year, Carl. Great job. Thank you.
Well, as you saw in that last story, Farm Bureau welcomed a new president this year.
2024's annual LFBF convention saw a few new seats on the board change, especially at the executive level. After 4 years as president, Jim Harper chose not to run for a new term. The voting delegates elected Evangeline Parish rice, crawfish, and soybean farmer Richard Fontenot to take the office. With Fontenot's third vice president seat open, the delegates chose Southeast Louisiana cattle rancher Amelia Kent. And second vice president Scott Wiggers was unseated in June by Birch Pierce of Catahoula Parish. TWILA also welcomed a new face this year. After nearly 20 years in the TV news industry, Josh Meeks joined us as executive producer.
I'm still wondering if that was a good idea. Well, one of his very first tasks was following Farm Bureau's volunteer young farmers and ranchers to Washington, D.C. as they brought their personal stories to Louisiana's congressional delegation.
There are thousands of moving parts in the federal government, each one having an impact on the next and so on, until it reaches the end result, in this case, the average farmer. These young farmers and ranchers from across Louisiana are hoping to change out some of those moving parts to make a better end result for all in agriculture.
My problems on my farm is not the problems on my neighbor's farm. They may have some different problem, and maybe we can't all get together at the same time.
This group headed to Washington, D.C. to meet with 6 of Louisiana's 8 congressional delegates. Each one has a different story to share.
The FSA loans, the EM loans.
We had a rough year with the drought.
The last thing we want is to tell them, I'm sorry, but we can't afford to pay you anymore.
For the Lees of Vermilion Parish, they've had to greatly cut back on the number of H-2A workers they can hire, all because of a program that was initially designed to secure those workers' wages.
So instead of the intended effect of 7 people getting a raise, 5 people are probably going to lose their job and be replaced by a piece of equipment, which is not what anybody wants to see, because we know these men. We've brought them back year after year.
For the Duncans of Rapides Parish, their struggle is over federal mandates on tagging animals, designed to track any outbreaks of infectious diseases.
It's for the better traceability. We need to know, if something happens, we need to know where it came from. But we got to go about it the right way. If you're going to tell us we need to do something, we need a little help doing it.
For the Gerasses of St. Landry Parish, they traveled to shine a light on an emergency loan program that's so backed up it could take over a year to get money.
I was told that it was going to take a lot of time before I may even see a dollar. My bills are due now. You worry every day. It's like, should I spend this money on this personal thing? My kids playing after school sports. That's something that we have to really consider. Like, do I spend $100 on my kids going to play baseball?
These concerns don't fall on deaf ears. Just hours after speaking with the House Ag Committee, the Gerasses were told the committee would look into the backlog of emergency loans to speed up the process.
Now, this was just one of the many trips that Farm Bureau volunteer leaders made to the Capitol. One of the most important things that we do is stay engaged with lawmakers, sharing these personal stories of our own hardworking farmers to make sure ag always has a seat at the table. And guys, wrapping up a first year at Farm Bureau, it's been a whirlwind. I've learned so much. I've gotten to see how farmers work. I've gotten to travel, obviously. I've gotten to work with you guys. It's been really exceptional.
So are you going to stay for another year?
I think I'll stick around. We'll see what 2025 brings. Like I said, getting to share these stories and going out and meeting them and seeing parts of the state that I never got to see before. Truly incredible.
What's the best memory of the past 365 days?
I would think that it would be Utah when I was kind of thinking on this, but honestly, it was the party at the Red Barn in Vermilion Parish, which is my first Farm Bureau event, and getting to see how Farm Bureau really engages with its people. That was awesome.
You know, I think it was a good idea bringing you on. Thank you so much, Josh Meeks. Well, sugarcane harvesting is currently underway. Many farmers are optimistic for this season's yield after the rebound from last year's drought.
There are still threats to a good harvest, some big and some small. This year, TWILA's Neil Melanson found one of the smallest critters that can lead to a big problem.
Randy Richard is a man looking for a problem. While that sounds like a fight, it's a fight against this.
It ate the meristem, the growing point, and that's what caused the dead heart.
He and entomologist Hannah Penn put sugarcane borers in these plots to study their effect on the crop. You can see the small entrance hole here where they go in and begin chewing. Eventually, they come out of this bigger hole and in the process kill the part of the plant that becomes the cane stalk. That's called dead heart. Dead heart doesn't usually kill the plant, but makes it unproductive for sugar. So far this year, there's an uptick in borer numbers statewide, but down compared to years ago, according to a recent study they did.
At this stage of when the cane is tillering, the general consensus is that it's not economical to treat the borers because there's no above ground internode. Once there is an above ground internode, then if there's a significant pest pressure, it would warrant an insecticide application.
Here at the USDA Sugarcane Research Facility in Schriever, they're working on several means of control for the borer, and so far they've been successful in balancing borer control with other traits.
We have kind of a triple action of control methods that we really rely on. So we have a lot of varietal resistance. So 299 is our biggest variety in terms of acreage because it stubbles really well, but it's also very resistant to the borer. Across the board, some of the newer varieties like 885 coming into use, they're a lot more susceptible to the borer. And then of those, we have the consultants that go out and check, and they will spray the acreage, but the actual total amount of acreage per year is a lot lower than you expect that actually gets sprayed with the chemical because people are really good about treating them when there's a threshold and using resistant varieties. We also have biological control.
One biological control for them is in every field and yard in Louisiana. Believe it or not, fire ants are actually good for something.
In fact, there was a study by LSU after some hurricanes in 2016 that showed that fields that got flooded with salt water and the fire ants left actually had to be treated for borers more because those fire ants were gone. So they didn't get any of that biological control.
Penn says besides letting the ants stay at the picnic, vigilance is the best weapon against the borers, especially this early in the sugarcane season.
Just keep your eye on what's happening early and often. Make sure that either you or you have a consultant going into the field and looking because actually some of the work that we just published out of the USDA last year showed that once a stalk has borer damage at the base, you are more likely to get borer damage within that year. So you want to make sure if you do have borers, you catch it early and prevent them from making more damage because it just kind of builds and builds.
Now, fortunately, sugarcane borers haven't proven to be a major source of yield loss in 2024. Still, researchers at the USDA and LSU Ag Center continue to monitor varieties that are more resistant to this invasive species that also affects other crops. And guys, I mean, it's a perennial problem. We report on it all the time, but of course, at any time, these things could break out and really cause havoc in our sugarcane fields. You know, this year it looks like Hurricane Francine was a bigger yield loss than borers, but next year could be different.
But even then, I know some farmers who are having a really good year with sugarcane this year. I mean, what have you been seeing out there?
It looks like a good year. I think everybody's relieved from the drought of last year that really hit hard. You know, sugarcane was right at the critical growing time when the faucet turned off, so to speak, and it really needed that extra boost to get more yield. But this year, it looks like they're having the tonnage and the sugar, so hopefully it's going to be a good year.
Neil Melanson, thank you so much for bringing us a great sugar story. Still to come on TWILA, Let It Snow. Louisiana farmers went to Salt Lake City for the annual American Farm Bureau Convention.
And while we were there, we explored Utah's dwindling dairy industry and the few farms keeping it afloat.
You're watching This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week.
White-topped mountains, buffalo, and a giant Salt Lake. 2024 took us far from Louisiana as we packed up and headed to Utah for this year's annual American Farm Bureau Convention. Farm Bill, of course, was the main topic of discussion as farmers from across the country packed into the Salt Lake City Convention Center. While in Utah, the TWILA team found agriculture stories of resilience, creativity, and ingenuity.
About 45 minutes outside of Salt Lake City, there was at one time more than 80 dairies working. Today, there are only 2. We visited Heber Valley Farms, where they're taking a challenge and turning it into an opportunity.
This red building framed in winter sits under the mountains in Heber Valley just outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. The bold black letters proudly posted on the outer wall tell you what's inside.
Our philosophy is you can't make the world's greatest cheese without the world's greatest milk. So everything starts on the dairy farm, and we really attribute that to the success of our cheese.
And the dairy farm Russ Kohler and his family operate is as impressive as the majestic views that surround it. Kohler's great-grandfather bought this farm in 1929 and converted it to a dairy operation. The head of a Holstein cow graces the old milking parlor. While not as ornate, the new dairy barn is like Club Med for the 120 cows milked daily.
It's my job as the farmer to keep these ladies behind me as comfortable, stress-free, and relaxed as possible.
There are brushes that rotate automatically when the cows want a scratch. Feed is available all day long. Farm dog Mookie helps out, and a robot pushes the feed closer to the cows when it spreads thin. And each cow wears a collar that Kohler says works like a Fitbit. It tracks how much the cows eat, their temperature, how much milk they produce, and yes, their steps, and then sends all of that data to a computer.
The data is huge. The numbers really help you dial in and focus on problems and find the root of problems quicker. And so we can get the cows to be just more relaxed, more comfortable, and ultimately more productive.
The site of that production is a source of even more data. Kohler uses a robotic milking system that allows the cows to choose when they want to be milked up to 3 times a day. Once a cow is in the chute, the cups attached to the udders clean them, and the milking begins. Again, Kohler focuses on the data.
So this is cow number 312. She's expected to give about 24 pounds of milk at this time. 24 pounds is about 3 gallons that she's going to give on this particular trip.
Back at Heber Valley Artisan Cheese, the data collection continues. Kohler monitors temperature and time to make his cheese among the best in the world. That's not hyperbole. The Heber Valley Lemon Sage Cheddar won a gold medal from the World Cheese Awards.
#1 in the world right there.
Kohler started making cheese in 2011. Some from his very first batch continue to age in this huge cooler containing about 300,000 pounds of cheese.
The age time on a cheese really determines the level of sharpness. So my mild cheddar will be in here for about 2 months. My sharp cheddar's in here for 2 years, all the way up to my reserve that's 10 years old that'll really knock your socks off.
Kohler develops new flavors by making a new cheese and inviting visitors to try them, score them, and provide him with more data.
We can plug that data then into our computer, and we can find out which cheeses, which flavors people like. We can also find out when the age time is on that cheese, when people seem to like it the best. So some cheeses may peak at 3 to 4 months, some may take a year before people seem to like them the best.
There's one piece of data that is always in the back of Kohler's mind. When his father was a boy, there were 130 dairies in Wasatch County. Today, his is one of 2. Urban encroachment and rising land prices are often obstacles to agriculture.
Where a lot of farmers were moving away from the people moving in, we saw it as an opportunity to take advantage of the people actually moving to us.
Vertical integration allows Kohler to control the product from cow to consumer. By opening his farm for agritourism and with the help of Farm Bureau, Kohler works to keep the dairy thriving.
We're urbanizing so rapidly that agriculture really is threatened by that. And Farm Bureau is just a steady voice that allows us to preserve what we want to do, preserve our heritage, and allow us to operate and share what we do with those people that are coming to us.
Since that story aired in January, Heber Valley has received more recognition. The Vanilla Bean Cheddar won silver at the World Cheese Awards in Portugal. If you'd like to learn more about Heber Valley cheese or even order some for yourself to try, go to our website at twilatv.org. And in fact, this past weekend, Lauren and I did a charcuterie board and we had some of the Fuego Verde cheddar that they make. Oh my God, so good. So good.
That sounds like a good Christmas present for your co-anchor.
Maybe I'll do that. Well, still to come on TWILA. Stutters, stumbles, whatever you call it, we got to be able to laugh at ourselves, right?
We'll have our hilarious blooper reel after the break. Now, we've spent most of the show talking about our successes this year, but it's time to take things down a notch because things do not always go that smoothly.
Oh, no. Out here is just broadcast excellence week after week after week. Now, okay, despite after doing this for years every week, there are times when our brains just kind of short out and, well, things get put upside down like that. Hi, I'm Avery Davidson.
And I'm Kristen Oaks-White.
Sorry.
That was
I
fast.
didn't change the speed. I'm
I
sorry.
saw how quick that was. I was like, whoa! There's the butt right over my shoulder. There's the butt.
Is that my fault? Is that his fault? Whose fault is that?
I thought you were going to thank him because I take the next.
Oh, you're right.
I haven't done this in a minute. I hope I don't screw up.
You will. With things warming up, you might get out one of
I feel like this cold medicine has me slow.
I don't really know what I just did a story about.
That was evident at Louisiana Farm Bureau's Women's Leadership Committees. It's possessive. That was evident at the Louisiana Farm Bureau's Women's Leadership Committee. That was evident at the Louisiana Farm Bureau's Women's Leadership Committees.
Don't tell them I don't know what I'm doing.
In this edition of How You Grow Louisiana, brought to you by First Fart.
She's having a back procedure done. It broke.
What moron wrote that?
Why? Just read. Read the prompter. It's right there. You read it earlier, Avery.
Do you want me to redo it?
Hi, let me try that again. Hi, I'm Avery Davidson.
Sorry, do that again.
Who are you?
No, I was looking at this one.
I had to make one mistake in there. I mean,
We started with a mistake. What do you mean?
But until now, frick, I was there.
Get it together, Beavis. That would give me a normal size forehead. It's just like my brain is not connecting to my mouth.
glad the producer's making decisions.
Go away, Avery. This is Kristen's show now.
It's a day. Let me redo that again.
Products online, we'll link you over on our website. Twebsite. We have a twebsite at twilatv.twebsite. Emerald Cooks is welcoming. Why can't I say welcoming? Welcoming. It's a normal word, right?
Let me do it all again.
Okay.
Thank goodness that does it for this year and this edition of TWILA. Be sure to join us next week for a very special holiday show. This isn't our last show, so.
Can we include that one in there?
I mean, I pretty much have to.
There sure were a lot of clips of somebody
Listen,
in that reel.
No, listen, if you can't laugh at yourself, you can always laugh at your friends, right?
Thank goodness that's the end of this. That does it for this edition of TWILA. Be sure to join us next week for a very special holiday show where we'll share our favorite holiday recipes.
Oh, and they were so tasty. Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org. Be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, check out our TikTok. You can find all of these stories and more on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications. That way, when we have new bloopers, you'll know about it.
For all of us here at TWILA, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.